all hot Papercraft.
Hello, welcome to the third video in my tutorial about Blender basics for paper modelers. And if you haven't seen the first two videos, I suggest you do so. You can find a link to them in the descriptions. And today we are going to talk about the edit mode. And the edit mode is actually where you do the actual modeling. So, fun can begin. So, of course, the edit mode, you enter it through selecting the mode here in the top left corner of the 3D viewport. And but in order to do so, you must first select some object, because you can only edit objects. If there's nothing selected, you will see that edit mode. I don't know why. So I don't know. It seems if there's only one object, it can be selected. But normally it should not be available if you like, for example, if I choose the camera, there is no edit mode. So so I will choose the edit mode, and as you can see, this is first thing is you need to understand what are vertices, singular vertex, plural vertices, what are edges, and what are faces. And for those three things, you have these selectors here, because you can edit those three things separately. So vertices are any corner, are basically corners, are points in a in the virtual space. So they are all defined, they are all positions within virtual space, and technically each of them would have a position. Yeah. So for example, this one is like 1 meter on the x-axis, 2 meters, 1 meter on the y-axis, and -1 and minus. So this is again from the origin. Remember that. So this cube is 2 meters in diameter, and the center point by which this is measured is in the middle, in the exact center of the cube. That's why each corner, if you switch to the edit mode, that's why each corner is like 1 meter in some direction, in 1 meter in all directions, but either negative or positive, away from this origin, from the middle position from which all those coordinates are measured. So I can select, so here if I select everything, select all, then you can see that it's selecting the corner. So this gets orange, but what's really selected here in this case are the vertices, are the corners, and I can manipulate those corners. I can manipulate each of them separately. Then I have edges, and edges. So this would be 1D, technically 1D things. Like you have 1D, you have it's just 1 point. And then you have the next one will be 2D. 2D is you have a line. But it's actually not perfectly correct, because this is actually this is not two-dimensional, because a surface would be. But anyway, just think about it. This is one. This is two vertices together. Two vertices together. You see, two vertices together make an edge, and an edge is like a bend. So the vertex is a corner, and the face and the edge is it's an edge. It's a corner. Yeah, it can be a corner like this. It can also be a corner inside. You will see that later. And then you have, and again you can select them and edit them one by one. And then you have surfaces, and surfaces are always, should at least have 3 vertices. At least have 3 vertices. Normally Blender tries to keep surfaces with as not really rectangles, but they have 4 corners. Yeah. So that would be, I don't know what's the English word for it, but you have 4 corners, but they are not necessarily rectangular. So they're not necessarily rectangular, but have 4 corners, and sometimes it will it is necessary to turn them into triangles. That would be called triangulate. So this, as you can see, this has four vertices, and again the surface I can edit that separately. Good. So those are the three kinds of things that you do. And if you, for example, if you have worked with SketchUp, then you might be aware of faces and edges, because SketchUp only has faces and edges. In SketchUp, you cannot separately manipulate the vertices, and it's actually easier to work with surfaces and edges. But in some cases, if you want to do some advanced things, you need to start using vertices. So my suggestion to you would be to try to avoid vertices as long as possible, and start only manipulating single vertices if all else fails. Because another thing that you need to remember is it's better to keep shapes as simple as possible. And another thing that because people are going to have to build your model. And another thing that you need to remember is that you are going to have to export. You're going to have to build other things based on what you do. So it's important to keep your model as clean as possible. If you go into messing around with vertices by hand, then they are very difficult. They can be rather difficult to control, because you need to adjust every single one, and then you quickly create some inaccuracies. And especially when you go to exporting, those inaccuracies can come back to harm you. Good. If you have if you use the edit mode, you can have more ways of selecting, and actually selecting is crucial in editing mode. Okay, so while the sphere is not a good thing to use in paper models, because it's a pain to build, but I'm still going to use the sphere as an example to how to manipulate the surfaces, because a cylinder or a cube don't only have so many surfaces and only have so many vertices. Question: how many vertices does a cube have? It has 8. One corner, right? And the cylinder has more. Depends on how many vertices you create. But so if I have the globe, or the sphere, then I actually have to build them as stripes here, and build each of them together. So you can have a try to export this to paper model and then build it. It will be a lot of fun. Of course, that's irony. So, but to show you how selecting works, the cube, the sphere is a very good way to do this. So I'm actually switching this to local view, but it doesn't really make so much of a difference. If you have many different if you have other objects when you're trying this out, you want to go to local view so you can see this sphere by itself. And then you have you can see user perspective, local, and sphere. And then you can first select the edge mode, right? So I'm in edge mode. You see, this is blue. And now I have again the selection mode, right? So you have here. No, what happened? So actually here I don't know why this is not available here, but if I use the tweak option, I can use Shift to add or subtract the edges. You see that? So now I'm holding Shift to remove them. I'm using Shift to add to them, so I can select them by hand. So, and another thing is that you need to remember that this white one means it's the last selected one, and this orange one means it's also selected. So remember that everything that's orange is selected, not what is white. Okay, and then if you use the other options, so you have the select box, like you can select all of those. So here now the surfaces light up as well, but remember you are still in edge mode. You can also switch to this. In this case, the edges and the surfaces will also be displayed, but what you're editing are the vertices. Okay, if you so this can again you can add to it by choosing this, and you can remove from it by choosing this. And then you have another thing that is this, which inverts the selection. And then you have this, which is the intersection of the selection. I'm not quite sure how does this one work. So let me just, because you would have to have two different selections which are intersecting, and I have no idea how this is actually supposed to work, because you cannot select different things in edit mode. Good. And then what I find is the most useful selection method in edit mode is the circle, and the circle is basically like a brush. You just brush around the area, and you just hold and brush around the area, and the things will appear. And the things that you select will appear, and then you can add to them, or you can subtract from them. You can get loose of them. And this is if you need to select many surfaces individually, this is very helpful. It's a bit difficult to show this without an actual example, but if you look at my other tutorials, you will see how I'm going to use them. Okay, and then of course you also have the lasso. The lasso is, this one is also, I think it's also very useful. I never really use it, but it's always a matter of what the individual user is getting used to. Good. Then of course you have other things which you can do through the selection menu. So in the selection menu you have several things. What's quite obvious is all. So all will select everything of every vertex, every edge, or every surface of this object. Then the next one is none. Should be also obvious what this is for. And then you have something which is called invert, and this means like you select some object, and if you want to select everything but this, then this is how you do it. You first select what you don't want to select, and then you go to invert, and everything will be selected except what you just selected. And then the box, so those three are actually the ones which are the tools: the box select, circle select, and lasso select. Then you can have select random. I'm not quite sure what that would be actually useful for, but it can randomly select something. Or you have, not sure what checkers are. So select sharp edges. So those are like something, this is something that you set up. You set a face up as a sharp. And then if you use this, you can select all the sharp edges. No? Okay, never mind. But anyway, I'm not sure if this is useful at all. Good. Then you have another thing is select similar. So similar lengths. Those are all things which can help you to select other things. Yeah, amount of face around an edge. I haven't figured out yet for what this is useful. Those are all like special ways of selecting things. But another thing that is like super useful are the edge loops. And edge loops are loops which are, let me just remove this sharp. Edge loops are just loops around the circle. So if you have two kinds of loops, and actually the sphere is perfect to show the difference between edge loops and edge rings. So if I select this one and I select an edge loop, then this will select the loop around the side. Actually, in this case, it just ends here. Yeah. If I have a cylinder, it will actually select the whole around the cylinder. Let me show you. So I go to object mode and I will add a cylinder. So I have a cylinder, right? And I go into edit mode. And of course, now if I want to select the edge loop, it's very easy because I just select the surface and that will select the edge ring, the loop ring, or edge loop, or we'll select this up. But what if I have, so let me quickly use the loop cut on this one. So if I have many loops, so now how do I select this? You know, if I use tweak, then I have to select everyone. Another option would be to use the select circle, and then I select all of this. No, first is deselect. I select all of this. Yeah, I select all of this, and then I get rid of the ones which I don't want. So I have part. But if I want to select the whole thing, the easiest way to do it is to use the edge loop. And for this one, I just select one object, and then I go to select the edge loops. And I select the edge loop, and it selects everything around here, and this makes it easy for me to adjust this. So now if I want to change this one, the size of this one, so it's very, very easy. Good. So let me go back to get back to the sphere. So get back to the sphere, and go to local view, so the cylinder doesn't disturb us, and go to edit mode. So this is the edge loop, right? The edge loop. But there's also the edge ring. What is the edge ring? See what happens. So now it selects the ring in another direction. It selects, you see, and again, select here, look at this, select the edge loop. So it's selecting in the direction of the edge. If I select this edge ring, then it selects the edge ring against the edge. You see that? You see the difference? Good. Then you go to other tools. So the first 4 tools, you are already familiar with them. So they are for moving, rotating, scaling, and the 3 tools in one. And so basically you use them the same. As the way that you use them is the same. It's just that they will have the effect that it will have is different. Also depending on whether you choose a vertex, whether you choose a vertex or an edge or a surface. So I move around a vertex, like this is what happens. You see, if I move around an edge, it will affect everything around in a mesh. That's why it's called a mesh, because everything is affected. And if I move around a surface, then this will also affect this. And again, for here, and now here is where the orientation of the movement becomes very important, because as you can see, this is the global orientation. But if I want to switch this, I can switch this to normal. So normal would be the set orthogonal perpendicular. It's in a right angle to the surface. So here I can move this out in its own direction. You see that? Okay, good. And it works the same for the vertices and the. Yeah, now I accidentally switched the view. It works the same for the edges and vertices. Good. Okay, what may happen is, like, if you move this around. If you move this around, what actually happens is to see how these surfaces are bent. They actually become impossible surfaces. So if I would go now into and try to export this as a paper model, it will tell me that I have twisted polygons. So that twisted polygons means they are impossible surface, because these surfaces do not exist. You see, you can't have 4 corners and then be bent around this. Actually, technically with paper you could do it, but the software cannot do it. And this is why in this kind of case you would have to triangulate the surfaces. So then see what happens. So in this case, because this shape is only possible to be created with triangles on a triangle based mesh. Good. So this is those are the tools we are familiar with. Again, let me show you just to remind you like how I can rotate. So I can rotate this surface. Maybe select this to global. Yeah, not really what I want. Maybe local. Oh, normal. You see, normal. So now I can rotate this a little bit out. Again, see how this is creating impossible surfaces or twisted polygons. Yeah, so then I would have to triangulate again. And scale, same thing. Scale, same thing. So, and of course, scale is like if you have the edge loops, you will always, something that you will constantly be using is to select the edge loops, and then you can scale them. Right, something like this. Okay, then you have another tool, which is the Extrude tool. And this is the tool which is new to you. And extrude means you will pull something out, basically. The difference is like if you move this out, if you select the surface and you move it out, let me switch it to normal. So if you move it out, it will affect all the surfaces and edges around it, right? But I just want to move this out, but I want this to come out, you know, and this is what extrude is for. So I will just pull here on the yellow lever and it will come out like a bar. You see that? And you can extrude pretty much everything. You can also extrude a vertex. But of course, if you extrude a vertex, what will happen is what? Well, it will become a line. So you see this is just a line. And then you could technically, you could extrude this line. This is like an edge. And you could extrude this line to create a surface. So that's how you can do it. It's not a really practical way of doing it, but you can do it. So you can extrude surface, vertex, edge, or surface. And here you can actually extrude it also in other directions. Yeah, you can extrude it in other directions. But I personally think that this kind of freestyle adjustment is not practical. And another thing that you might want to remember is that if you extrude, if you extrude a surface, then once you let go of the mouse button, it will be fixed. So then if you extrude again, you can see how this creates another, it extrudes again. So if you extrude this out again, then you want to keep moving it continuously, then you should use the move function. And remember that for extruding, if you click on the plus sign and drag the plus sign, then it will extrude parallel to the normal. Again, this is perpendicular. Is that perpendicular and right? This is in a right angle to the surface. Okay, then what about so another thing is like if I select two surfaces and then I extrude them. You see, they will come out together. You see that? So I can extrude several surfaces together. But there's another function which actually I have not figured out what it would be useful for in paper modeling. But if I select everything, so it's called the select individually. So I select these two. So there's another option here available, which is extrude individual. And this one is extruding. Wait, let me see. So this one is extruding every surface along its own normal. Yeah, again, the axis which goes in a right angle through the center of the surface. And then you can do such fun things as what I'm going to show you now. So you can extrude all of these, and you can create something like this. Yeah, it will be really a lot of fun to build this paper model. Good. But again, you can remember that the faces, like the surface, of course, face comes from surface, but face is also because it's facing a certain direction, so it's facing, and if you extrude it, it will face that particular direction. Good. Another thing that is very useful, and I'm going to talk about it now. Because what you can remember, I told you you can extrude edges, right? You can extrude edges, and then you have a function, and this is an extremely useful function actually. Later on, you will discover that you can select two faces or two vertices even, and then you have in the vertex menu you have some here new edge, new face from vertices, and that will create a new face. You see that? In the same way, you could select two vertices, extrude them. Well, actually, you see it's extruded together. So in this case, I would actually need to use extrude individual. So they will no. Okay, so I don't know why it doesn't work, but let me just do it totally manual. So I will just first extrude one vertex, and then extrude another vertex. And now I could select these two, and create a new face from vertices. You see, now I have a face. I can select all of those four. I now have a new edge. I can select all of those four and create a new edge face, and then I have a new face. Okay, then another thing is that you have another tool that you have is called Inset Faces. Let me just go to object mode and go away from the trash I have created here and add a new cube. And add a new cylinder. Okay, so the inset faces. So as the name of the tool already says, is it can be used only for faces. So if you try to do something with vertices, nothing will happen. If you do something with edges, nothing will happen, because it's a tool for faces only. If you see what it does, you will understand why. So actually, it does exactly what you can see here on the image. So you just select one surface, and then you can pull the white ring, and it will create an inner one. You see, you have to be aware that this is still flat. So this is just creating new edges, which are not edges. They are just, they are not really edges because they are not bent. They are just on the surface, but they are still called edges. So you have new lines on the surface. And now you can create something new. And then you can have you could, for example, if you have this, you could just move this out, yeah, to create something like this, or you could extrude it out for something like this. And let's have another look how this looks on the cylinder. So for the cylinder, I have go to edit mode, and I select the surface, and then I can use the inset faces, and it creates an inner ring. You see that? So this is actually very useful if you want to create an inner surface for something, because then you just make a slight edge here, because you need to be aware of the paper thickness, and then you can actually this would be should probably be called intrude, because you extrude inwards. So you extrude inwards, and then you can create that, and then later, of course, you will have this little edge. You're not going to build this in a paper model, but you're going to have the inner surface and you're going to have the outer surface. It works pretty well. I've tried it many times before. Good. So again, I can also, use this to actually, so I can extrude this to create a new part of the fuselage or the body or the leg or whatever. Or I can also do the same thing. I can also do the same thing with the inset face tool. So I inset the face. I can see what radius do I want to have, and then I move this out. Or I extrude it out. Gold. So this is the inset face tool. So, but what you're going to have is you're going to have those extra lines here, right? So what you can do is, actually I'm not sure if this works with the ring, edge ring. So yeah, you can use the edge ring to select those faces, but you need to get rid of this one. Yeah, you need to deselect this one. So you have, no. So you select all of these edges. And you select all of these edges. If you want to get rid of them, you can choose dissolve edges. Oh, this is bad. So actually there's some, yeah, this happens because there was one surface here selected which was not supposed to be selected. So you need to be very, very careful. If you select many objects, you need to be very, very careful not to select the wrong things. So once again, I try to use dissolve edges. So what is the difference? So you see that now these edges on the surface are dissolved, right? They disappear. You need to be aware what is the difference between dissolve edges and delete edges. So dissolve edges, actually you can also access it through here. No, seems not. But you can use the right mouse click, and then you get dissolve edges and you get delete edges. So dissolve edges will just dissolve the edge, but the surface that remains. If you delete the edges and see what happens, you see the surfaces will also disappear. But if you dissolve the edge, then the surface will remain. But be careful, because if they are not on one surface, then this is what happens. Look, if I select those several edges and I dissolve them, what happens is this becomes straight. See that? So this is very important to understand the difference between dissolving edges and deleting edges. Good. Then I have the Bevel tool, and the Bevel tool is another quite useful tool. Let me just clean up the mess I have made. So all of these wonderful objects, actually I should keep them because they are so interesting. But, just get rid of all of those things and create a new cube. So now the next tool which we need to look at is the Bevel tool. And what the Bevel tool does is it makes the edge into a new corner. So you can see this. So I can turn the cube into, whatever you call this. I can make the angled edges in this way. See? And of course, I can also do this if I just select the edges. I can also select this just for one edge to make it like this. Or you see, like if I want to have the roof of a building, I can just do it very quickly like this. But I need to be careful that nothing like this happens. You see, this is always trouble. So this would be a very simple house, right? So okay, and then and the really cool thing is that once again I will select all, and the really cool thing is I can actually control this with the adjust last operation. So I will pull this out, I will bevel this, and then I can select, can go to the adjust last operation, and I can select the number of segments. You see that? Now it's 1, now it's 2, now it's 3, now it's 4, now it's more, and it becomes really round. So once again, this is something which is really cool if you are doing 3D models. If you want to export this out to a paper model, then try to build this stuff here. This is going to be a real pain. But still, again, this tool is very useful. And of course, if you don't want to do it like this, then you just select the edges, and you bevel them, no matter how big, yeah. And then you set up the segments like this, and you get a rounded cube or box or whatever. Good. Or of course you can also do the same ways, like you can just another thing that another way that is, you know, if you delete the surfaces here, and then you select a whole cube, and then you'll use bevel and set up the segments. So then again, this is something that you can do because it will just be a round part in the model later. Then the next thing is a loop cut. For the loop cut, we can actually keep this. Let's just close this again. So we can actually, we could close this again by selecting the edges and making a new, okay, so actually I need to select the edge loop here. Select edge loop and new edge surfaces, select the edge loop, make new surface from vertices. So what is the loop cut? So this is the next one, loop cut. The loop cut is a tool. You see, I've created this thing, and now I suddenly realize, oh, I need to change something here in between. I need to add some additional angle here. So what I can do is I can add a loop cut, and now I can have a loop cut. I create a loop cut, so it's automatically selected, and now I can adjust this. And I need to have another loop cut. I need to have another edge. So I make another loop cut here, and again I can scale this one. So this is the loop cut. It's also extremely useful if you want to split something, yeah. And you can also use it in this way. You can use the loop. You can have a loop cut, and then you can make number of cuts. You can set up the number of cuts, so you can split this into like many loops. I mean, again, you don't want to have too many segments because you want things to be easy to build. You don't want to create too many sections, but you can do like a sub-selection with this. And if you have an edge loop in the other direction, you could also do it like that. Something else that works in the same way is the subdivide function, which is used for the faces. So for the face, you can have something called subdivide, and which is actually under the edges, so this will actually create new edges on a surface. Okay, we don't actually need them here. Good. And then another very important tool that is very so the offset edge loop cut. I don't really know what it's useful for. So then you have the knife. And the knife tool is a super important and super useful tool. It's very important to master the knife. You know, you become a master with a knife. Like, what is his name? Paul Muad'Dib. Okay, no. So this is not the same kind of knife wielding that you would expect from some, action movie. Let's just add the cylinder, and let's, actually it's not necessary to turn up the vertices in this case. Make it a little bit longer, and also rotate it a little bit. Good. So, and now let me show you the knife. So what the knife does is the knife cuts through any object actually. And the knife, unlike, like you have there's one huge difference between this knife and any knife that you will find in your kitchen, because with this knife you can cut, and not only can you undo it, but you make a cut, and you can also think if you are satisfied with this cut, and then you effect it, means you confirm it, or you realize, oh no, this is not the kind of cut I want. So basically you just hold the mouse button and drag it along, and this will create a cut. You see how this does not stop. So only if I click another time will it stop. So now, but now you see the knife is still active, and this is something that is very confusing. You need to get over that. You need to get used to that, because this, well, you will get used to it actually. But you know, the knife is still active. I can still continue cutting. I can still continue cutting until I hit enter. And then the changes will be effected. So now the cuts are being made. Alternatively, I can hold the mouse button. I can start to cut. Yeah, I don't need to hold the mouse button. I just I just click one time, and then it becomes like this. And I click another time, another time, another time, another time, and several cuts will be made. If I don't want them, I just hit escape. And nobody got hurt. Okay. And so if this, another thing that you can see is, like, if I move it across, then you can see here that the green dots are actually new vertices which are going to be created. So I enter this, and new vertices will be created. See that? New vertices will be created, new edges will be created. Okay, but notice something. So the knife in this case is dependent on the view. So now this is a straight line. But as this is a rounded surface, it's not a straight line anymore. You see that? So the knife depends on the view. So usually if I want to make a straight line cut, it's better to go into the orthographic view, and then I can make a straight cut. But even then, you know, I have to make sure that, you know, I hold, if I click the mouse, if I hold the mouse button, then I can cut round. See this? If I click once and then I release the mouse button, I pull over and I click again, and I will have a straight line. Okay, but this is a mess. I don't want this. Sorry. And then you have, so you can effect it, right? And then another thing is that you might have is that if you have more things in the back, it might also affect things in the back. So how to show you? So if I have an object mode, so I have a cube here. I have a cube here, and I will make these two objects because I can actually edit them together. So I can edit them together. So now I have two objects in here. And if I cut across the object in the front, it may be that, you see now nothing happened. Now only the object in the front is affected, and the back side of the object is not affected. This is because it was not set up to be like this. But if I can say, so this means occlude geometry. If I turn this off, then even the object which is behind will be affected. So I cut a line across here. And then, as you can see, not only is the back of this object cut, but also the object which is behind it is cut. So that means normally you might want to not, you might want to choose occlude geometry. So this kind of thing does not happen. In some cases, it might actually be useful. Okay, and then there are other things. There's another thing that you need to do. That you need to know is that you have hotkeys. So hotkeys means you have keyboard shortcuts, and keyboard shortcuts, yeah, there are many people who don't like to use them. Anyone who works in a professional way, I mean, they're just so time saving, and I really love using hotkeys. And actually for the knife, they are extremely crucial because, yeah, you will see. So one thing is, I have this cylinder, right? No. Let's use the cube. So I will use the cube. So I have this cube, and I want to cut a line across here. Of course, I can use the loop cut, right? But I just want to have a line on one surface. So I want to cut across here. So I use my knife, and I start here, and I cut across here. But I want this to be A, in a certain angle, yeah, and B, maybe I want this, yeah, maybe I want to cut this in a 45-degree angle. How do I do this? I have nothing to reference, right? So what I can do here is I can switch. Yeah, I don't know what happened here. So I can switch to the orthographic view. And now I can use the knife. I have this one. So here I have a setting which is the angle snap. So I can have this angle snap, and I'm not sure what the screen space here is, but I can let me say it's angle snap. So now, as you can see, it displays a white line. That means it's snapped to this angle, and the angle here was set to 30 degrees. So now I can only cut along this angle. See that? Another thing is, if I want to do this individually, I can use the hotkey. And I don't turn this on, but I will just start to cut, and then I will hit A. I will push the A key, and this is what's going to happen. So I can cut along this angle. But you need to be careful because, again, this is dependent on the view. That's why it makes only sense in the orthographic view. So in the orthographic view, wait. Where's my cube? So in the orthographic view, so I wanted this to be, maybe I'll get rid of this edge once again. And so I want to cut 45 degrees. So one thing I can, if I cut from a vertex to a vertex, well, that's very easy. So here I click on the vertex. See green because it's a vertex. So here green because of vertex. So I can connect between two vertices, just hit enter. This is very easy. But now if I want to cut a line here in 45 degrees, so this is a lot difficult because there's no vertex here. So I will just set this one to 45 degrees, and then I will use the increment, hit A, and I can cut the line in 45. I can cut the line in 45 degrees. So this is the angle increment. Another thing that I can do is I can use the knife to go along the axis. So again, here, if I connect vertex to vertex, it doesn't really matter. But like, for example, maybe I want to make a knife cut from here and then make it along the Z line, right? So I choose the knife. I start my cut here. I hold down the mouse. I click one mouse. And now I want this to follow the Z. So again, I can hold Z to restrict the knife along the Z axis. Yeah, and for some reason it doesn't want to cut. Oh, because I'm not in this object. Ha 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 ha. Okay, so I switch the object to here. Good. So now I want to cut like this. I want to cut like this, but I want this to be aligned along the Z line. So I just hit Z and the green line appears. So now this will be adjusted along the Z axis. So this is in the same way I can adjust along the Y axis. Wow, I don't know what it did here. This is really funny stuff. I guess it's because I let go of the key sometimes. Okay, I have no idea why it did this. Yeah, sometimes Blender is always full of surprises. But anyway, technically, this is what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to let you cut along the Y-axis. In the same way you could cut along the X-axis by pushing X. Yeah, and this is the knife tool. And the knife tool is really useful if you need additional edges. Good, then you have the bisect tool. And the bisect tool is selected through the knife. Yeah, sometimes the knife can be really annoying because it just doesn't want to go away. Then just ignore it, switch the mode. Good, again, let me get rid of my mess. And I will bring in a new cylinder. And let me rotate this. And let me make it a little bit longer. Good. So now I have the bisect tool. And the bisect tool is actually something that can make it's similar to a loop cut. But the difference is that you can control the angle. So you go to edit mode and you select the bisect tool, and then you click once and drag a line. Okay, and now you can okay, there's one thing that I forgot. You need to select everything, select all, and then you hold it and drag a line. And now you see the line here. And the difference to the loop cut is you can still control the angle by rotating on the wheel, and you can control the position by moving along. So you can rotate it like this, and well, you rotate it in that direction. Obviously, it's not possible. But then again, you effect it, and it becomes a cut. So it's good to get used to how to say, it's good to be able to use the bisect tool, because if you have twisted polygons in some place, then you can always cut a straight surface with this, because now you see, if I remove those things here, if I select the surfaces here, why is it not selecting? Oh, okay, I don't have the red mode. So I select the surfaces here. and I delete them, and then I select the edge loop, no, and then I can make a new surface which is really flat. And now if I have a if I have this twisted surface, if I have a twisted surface, which happens very quickly if I start to use vertices in the wrong way. So I have now this is an impossible surface, right? So one way, of course, to get rid of the impossible surface is to select the impossible surface and then triangulate the faces, and then something like this will come out. But you know, like maybe I want this straight again, right? So I just select everything and I use bisect tool. Again, the bisect tool is a bit tricky to use. It really gets a bit getting used to. So I use the bisect tool and I just get rid of all of this crap and I have a straight surface once again. Just do it, quickly do it. And dissolve faces, and I have the straight surface once again. The next tool we are looking at is the Poly Build tool, and the Poly Build tool can be used to create meshes very quickly. So if you can hold Control and you click, you can create vertices. If you have enough vertices, you can even make a new face from them, and then you can triangulate the face and you will have a new surface. Yeah, good. Another thing that you can do is if you have this now you can see that the lines here are blue, right? So the edges are blue, and I can hold them, I click and I can drag them out to extrude them very quickly and to create new surfaces. And if I hold Control and click on the edge, then just now I created a new vertex. Now if I drag it out and hold Control, then it will create a triangular surface. And this can I can quickly create new surfaces here. And then if I select all of them, if I select all the ones that are selected, I can also quickly delete them by holding Shift, and you can see that how this becomes red. And then if I click Shift on the red square, it can delete them. And this tool is actually supposed to be to quickly create new what is called topology, like new meshes. Good. I personally think that it's difficult to control and I don't really like to use it, but there's one thing which I can show you where it is useful for, and that has to do with the next tool. So I delete this and I go to the orthographic view again, and now I try to draw something like this. Let me see if I can manage this time. Yeah, and I don't know why it does this. Okay, just leave it at that. Then I select all of it. I select all, and then I go to use the next tool, which is the spin tool. And the spin tool, I just switch to another axis like this. And now I can rotate this around the 3D cursor. So as you can see, I will fold this out, and it folds around like this kind of paper lantern. And if I rotate it to another full 360 degrees, I can use this to create shapes, like maybe rockets or missiles or whatever, or you know, a wine glass. You can create a wine glass like this, and you can also adjust this. You can adjust the angle here, and you can also adjust the steps. So if you want to have more steps, you just make this more, and then you can have a round shape. And this is a very cool and easy way to create some circular elements. Good. And another thing that you can do is you can also rotate actually a shape, but you can also, you know, like if I make a new one, and if I go here and I add a cylinder, not a cylinder, cube, and I move the cube out, and I turn this cube into I delete some vertices here. So, or actually I delete this surface. I delete this surface. Oh no, I delete all of this surface. And I just have one surface. And I can also spin this surface actually. So I can spin this surface. So I can spin this. And of course I need to reposition my 3D cursor, because again it will be rotated around the 3D cursor. So, and then I spin this, and it will become like this. But the problem here is now that because this is not an edge, so for the paper model this is a bit troublesome, because if you switch to, I'm not sure if this is like empty inside. Let me have a look. So if I go inside, oh, so actually this is empty inside. So this is another way that you can do it. You can just have a surface and then spin it. Yeah, you can have a surface and then spin it. And yeah, but this has quite a few steps. You see, I switched this to 90 steps. Okay, and then if you want to spin along another axis, so let me just adjust this a little bit. Yeah, but you see, this is the problem about the polybuild tool, because you never know which axis you're on. So it's not really, I don't think it's very useful. Yeah, there's a cat crying outside. What is that? Delete faces. So I will go to the let me show you how to do the wine glass, right? The wine glass. So wine glass. Dean. Yeah, something like this. And then this angles down, then angles up again, and like this. Yeah, ha. And this is the polybuild tool. This is really a lot of trouble. Good. Anyway, another thing that I can do is if I have this. No, let me create something more simple. Select all and delete. Select all, delete. And I have, why does it not delete? I have no idea. Because it's not vertices. I need to delete the vertices. Delete vertices. Good. So I create something like this. Okay, and now there are different ways that I can spin this. So I can spin this along this axis. Oh, but you know, only one vertex was selected, so that's one. So select all and rotate it around this, right? So see how this is rotated around the cursor, right? Go back, I move the cursor, inward, then it will, again, it will spin around a cursor. You see, that's a very different, different object that comes out. And another thing is that I can do is I can change the axis. I can change to y-axis. And this way, it will create a totally different rotation. It will create something like this, which is, well, this is a really funny shape. So of course, for this one, I probably wouldn't need to change the position of the cursor once again. I would probably position the cursor somewhere around here. And now I rotate, I spin around the y-axis, and now I can create something like this. You see that? So I can create something like this. Looks like the space dog from Star Trek or something. Okay, so then you have, so this is another way to spin. And of course I can also spin around the y-axis. So I can also spin around the z-axis. I can spin around the z-axis. And in this case, it doesn't really make any sense because they are pretty much all on the same level, right? But this is just to show you that the things can be spin around the different axes. Similar to the spin tool, there's the spin duplicates tool. So the spin duplicates tool does what? The spin duplicates tool basically works in the same way as the spin tool. The only difference is that it creates duplicates. So if I select all, and then again I can rotate it, but I don't want to rotate it. I wouldn't want to rotate it around the center point like now, because that will only rotate it onto itself. So I need to move the 3D cursor somewhere outside, and now I can use the spin duplicates tool, and you can see that this creates many duplicates. You see how many. And this is around the blue axis, which of course doesn't make sense. If I rotate this around the green axis, you see I can get many duplicates, and if I don't want to have so many, I can reduce the amount of them in the adjust last operation. So I can have this, I can have many. I don't know what this, maybe some spaceship have something like this, I don't know. And the only real world application which I can think of for this would be, yeah, if you're into guns, you can create a Gatling gun like this. Go to the edit mode and select all. And then position the cursor somewhere around here. And then rotate and maybe this is still close. I don't know how many barrels does it have actually. I don't understand guns so well. I think it should be 6, but then you should move the cursor still a little bit more away to make sure that they don't intersect with each other, and then you can create Gatling gun, right? Okay, so not a really super useful tool, but it's fun. Okay, then we have the next tool. Let me just delete everything, and yeah, okay, that was deleted too much. Let me add another cube. Add a cube, and next tool that we have is the smooth tool. And the smooth tool is, well, guess why it's called a smooth tool? You see, it does not work if I select the whole cube. What I need to do is I need to select vertex. I never can get used to the vertex and vertice. So I select the vertex, and this is like a corner, right? So I can smooth this. Actually, this makes it more sharp, and this makes it more smooth. Yeah. So, so that's smooth, and I can it should possibly also work with an edge. Let me have a try. So it also works with an edge, but it probably does not work with the surface. At least I don't really see what sense it would make to use it for surface. Okay, I don't know what this can be useful for, but we never know. And it seems useful enough. A version of this is a randomize tool, and for the randomize tool, I would need to select several vertices, and then they will be randomized. So they will just do something funny. Again, not sure what would be the use of this in Papercraft. Maybe if you want to do some abstract sculptures, futuristic, cubistic sculptures. Yeah, maybe then, but you know, like, I mean, in art, nothing is impossible, so you can always do some Papercraft art with this kind of thing. It's a nice sculpture to put in your living room. Good. And then the next one. The next one is the Edge Slides tool. And for the Edge Slide tool, let's once again get rid of this. And the best way to demonstrate the Edge Slide tool is using a cylinder. And let me add a cylinder. And let me, I don't know why I always feel like they need to be vertical. Why they need to be horizontal. But somehow, yeah, maybe this is because fuselages and planes or what. And so I will adjust this a little bit. I will add a cone here. Oh, no, still in randomize. Extrude and scale smaller. So, and now I have the edge slide, right? So the edge slide is what? Maybe I want to create a new loop ring here. I want to create a new loop ring here, and I want to create a new loop ring here. But you see, if I select a loop ring, edge loop. So if I select the edge loop, then if I move it around, it will actually change the shape, right? So this is not what I want. So what I can do is actually here it does not really work. So I move this. I can't really move this because this has the same effect as moving it. But you see, I add a new loop, right? And then I realize, oh, but this is not the position I wanted to, because also if I create a new loop ring, edge loop, if I create a new edge loop, then this will usually be at a half position, but I don't want it in a half position. I want to have it, you know, in between here. So that's when the edge slide becomes useful. So I will just select this and I can slide this along the edge without affecting my angles, right? And this can be very useful if you need to reposition an edge loop. Yeah, and another thing that you have is you also have a vertex slide. So basically, I could just select one vertex here, and I could just use the vertex slide, and I can slide this around, and it will not affect the general geometry, as you can see. And then again, I don't know what it would be useful for to slide that. Maybe you want to have some. Yeah, but then again, you know, like then again, why having this edge loop? But anyway, this is another useful tool, and of course you can only slide along well, actually, no, seems this if it only makes sense if you slide along an existing axis. You see here, it actually starting to distort the geometry, or the topography, as they like to call it. Good. Then the next tool is the shrink and flatten tool. So we just stay with this one. So the shrink and flatten tool is what? So for this, I select an edge loop. And then what it does is it select the edge loop. So what it does is it shrinks it or widens it. Actually, the very same thing can be done with the if you use the scale tool and edit it. So I'm not quite sure what would be the use of this in general. Maybe if you select everything and then you can shrink everything and make larger everything. I think the difference here is that you see what's happening. You see what's happening. It's like if I use the scale tool, then look at the distance from the side. So if I scale bigger, actually it doesn't. It still changes. So I'm not quite sure what will be the advantage of using this over scaling, but it does something. You see, like it changes the angle. It shrinks. So I think that what you could probably do for this one is like that's something that you cannot do with the scale tool. Is you could select all the loops. Select all the loops. But you don't select other things. And then you can... No, it still does not work. Okay, I don't really understand what can be the use of this one. If you find out, please let me know. The next tool we need to talk about is the Shear tool. And the Shear tool, well, what does the Shear tool do? Well, obviously it shares, if you know what share means. And yeah, you select a tool and you have these things, right? And these things mean you can share it in certain directions, right? So this would be along the blue axis. Yeah, but it's not, doesn't really do anything. So now you can see this, like it's sharing like this. You see that? It's sharing along this axis. It's sharing along this axis. And then if you share along this axis, actually you don't really see it if you don't. I don't know why it doesn't work. It has something to do with the share. Then I can share along this axis. See, I can share along this axis. I can share along this axis, and I can also share along this axis. So each of them is an axis. And you see, what is this actually useful for? Something which it can be super useful for is if you have an edge loop. Let me show you. So I will just make this a little bit higher. And I will add a new, I will make a loop cut. So, and I have this loop cut. And I want this to be, you know, I want this to be not straight. I don't want this to be not be in a right angle. But if I would do this with the rotation tool, then what will happen is that it will affect the geometry. See that? It will affect the geometry. So, and here the Shear tool comes in very useful, because I can use this to share it, and it will not affect the geometry. So that's something super useful. Okay, and then another tool is the To Globe tool and the To Globe tool, or To Sphere tool. So I have a cube and I have the To Sphere tool. So To Sphere tool And the two-sphere tool, well, what could a two-sphere tool possibly do? You can turn it into a sphere. But in order to turn it into a sphere, you can't do it like this. You first have to subdivide the faces. So you have here, you have an edge, you have subdivide. So that then you can subdivide. This will split all the surfaces which you have selected in half. So you subdivide again, you subdivide some more and some more and some more. Okay, and subdivide like this far. And now you can start using the two-sphere tool. So, see, you hold the mouse button and you turn it to become more and more spherical until it becomes... Yeah, the thing is you can't make a complete sphere because these are squares we are talking about. So you can't make a complete sphere. But you can do something similar to it. Yeah, again, what is the use for paper modeling? Yeah, you can try to build something like this out of paper. It's going to be a lot of fun. Or not. Okay. Then, the thing is like, how do you create subdivisions? Once again, to show you. So because subdivisions can be really useful. And you can go here. And you say subdivide, and it will add something. If you just select one surface, yeah, then it can subdivide just this surface, but it will always create subdivisions in both directions. So if you just want to have them in one direction, you just create them and you dissolve the edges which you don't need. Another thing that you can do is you can also subdivide an edge. Because why is it in the edge menu? Wait. So if you subdivide an edge, then you get an additional vertex. You see this? And if you further subdivide this, you further subdivide it, you get even more vertices. Okay, and of course you cannot subdivide a vertex because yeah. It's already the smallest unit. Good, let me go back here. And then I have the final tool. Well, actually the final two tools, but they are related. Let me get rid of this vertex. Okay, and then we have, then let me subdivide this again because we need it. Select the whole cube. And subdivide. Okay, now I have the subdivided cube. And what the rib tool is, well, why would you call it? Well, why would you call something a rib tool? So you can just pull on click on the surface, and then you rip it out. Right, so you can do this with you can do a vertex. You can choose a vertex, and you can rip it out, and this creates an open wound on the. And actually, as you can see, it also creates an impossible surface here. So you would have to triangulate after. Another way that you can do is you can hold Alt and V, and then rip it, and then it will not rip an open wound, but it will automatically fill the space. But again, you see, as it again fills the space with impossible surfaces. So you would have to select these surfaces and triangulate them. Yeah. Okay. Then you can so you can use it for a vertex you can rip a vertex, and you can also rip like you can use the rip. Well, actually, this is rip. So it's called rip region, right? So you can select this You can select the edge and you can rip this out. And actually you can also rip out a surface, supposedly. No, it seems it does not work. Okay, so this is obviously just working for edges and vertices, but the thing is that but there is also a rip edge tool, and the rip edge tool is different in that if you well, it's called a rip edge tool obviously because you need to select an edge, and this can rip the edge, and it will also automatically fill the rip. So if you want to rip out the edge and not fill it, then you should use the rip region and it will open this hole, whatever. And I don't know what happens if I click Alt V with this. Okay, so it won't do that. Let's hit Alt V. Yeah, and then again, I don't need to use Alt V because this is that's why I have the rip edge tool for. Good. So these are actually all the important tools in the edit mode. It took a bit of time, huh? There are two things which are still very important in the edit mode, but we will get to them later when we talk about exporting and when we talk about mostly when we talk about exporting. Because one is the here is the mark seam and clear seam. This is because this can help you to define the parts later in the model. And another thing that we are going to need is clean up, because if you export out, there may appear a lot of inaccuracies, especially if you're using the boot tool. So that's all for this video. It's been a long video, but you don't have to. You could have just watched it piece by piece, and I hope you learned something from it, and and I hope you will come and watch the next video about exporting. Thank you for watching.